Hi. It's you. I know you. Well, good to see you. I'm glad you're here, and welcome to the replay. And it is going to be a replay that you're not soon going to forget. Hello, Joel Comm here, and welcome to Joel.LIVE, the weekly show where I bring you business, social, and other, I don't want to say thought leaders. I almost fell in the trap of saying thought leaders. I don't like the whole thought leader thing. I think everybody should lead with their thoughts, right? I think everybody should, we're all thought leaders. We all lead with our thoughts. And if we're not leading with our thoughts, then we're leading with our feelings. And there's nothing wrong with feelings. Feelings, whoa, whoa. I mean, we have a song about it, right? So we can talk about feelings and all that, but lead with your thoughts. We're all thinkers. We should all engage with our minds, and we should all question everything. Anyway, I'm glad you're here. Welcome to Joel.LIVE. And as you're coming in the room and the Molly bots are going on BeLive.tv, please share that the broadcast is live. And you know how to do that. This is Facebook. If you don't know how to do that by now, then what are you doing on social media? You got your comments, you got your likes, and you got your share button right there. So click the share button and let others know that we're live, because in just a couple minutes, I'm going to bring you a guest that I cannot wait to speak with and who you will not soon forget. Of course, this technology that you see here, for those that are seeing this for the first time, is brought to you by BeLive.tv. And this is where we're allowed to do shows that have multiple guests on it. Oop, let me click the solo there. This is BeLive.tv, and I'm just going to say that BeLive rocks because it provides functionality that Facebook doesn't on its own, where we can do interviews, where we can do cool lower thirds, where I can put your comments up on screen at the click of a button, just like this. So make sure that you do come on in and leave your comments. And by the way, let me put in the URL here for you for the official BeLive page. I'm going to pop that up on the screen for you right now. If you want to be able to put your comments in here on this broadcast, then you can be watching this from a number of different pages. But in order for me to see your comments and be able to click and put them on screen like this, then you need to be at the official BeLive page. So it's facebook.com/BeLive TV app. And when you go there, like the page and then type comments, and then you'll be able to see cool things like this, like when Stephen Healy's in the room and I could say, hey, Stephen, good to see you. Just also this quick reminder that as of November 10th, Joel.LIVE is going to be changing days. Why is that? Because Mr. Jeff Adams is going to be launching a new show on BeLive.tv. I know you've missed him for BeLive Weekly. You got me instead, twice the age, twice the gray, and half the humor. But Jeff is going to be doing a new show on BeLive.tv at this time slot. And so I will be moving on Friday, November 11th, along with my guests. I'm dragging them with me to Fridays at the same time period. So I hope that you will mark that down on your schedule, put sticky notes all over your mirror, tattoo it on your arm, whatever you got to do to remember that we're changing times, and that I hope that I see you there. Okay, got a really great show for you today, and really eager to talk to the gentleman that is in the lobby, in the waiting room right now, because he's got a story to tell that is impactful, and it is a perfect example of how no matter what you have done in your life, no matter what mistakes you have made, it is never too late to turn it around. This gentleman's name is Shaka Senghor. He is a writer. He is a mentor. He's a consulting producer on Oprah's new show called Released, and he began transforming his life while in prison. Well, what did he do? I'll tell you this. The man is a convicted murderer. And yet, wait till you hear what he has done. He wrote a book called Righting My Wrongs, Life, Death, and Redemption in an American Prison. And in it, he shares his experiences on the streets, in prison, and about how he is now helping youth that could be headed down the same destructive path. Welcome to Joel.LIVE, Shaka Senghor. How you doing, Shaka? I got no audio from you. I can see you, though. You look great. somewhere in your microphone settings. Maybe we can do smoke signals and sign language instead. You might need to disconnect, and then there's a little gear thing that lets you connect your microphone. And if that's okay, because I will carry on while you're figuring that out. So he's gonna solve that. In the meantime, let me say hello to my friends that are here. Tina, you saw him recently. Great, nice to see you. Yes, Claudia, Jeff is going to be doing that show shortly. And that's going to be super fun. I don't know what he's up to. I have no idea what kind of shenanigans he's going to be. Okay, well, I see Shaka. You guys just wave at him since we can't hear him yet. What you might, Shaka, nod if you can hear me okay. Yeah, you can. Okay, so what you might want to do is refresh the page, and when you go to connect, there's a little gear, and it lets you pick your video and your microphone, and it could be that we just don't have your microphone selected. So go ahead and give that a try. All right, he's going to give it a try. Yay, technology! This stuff happens. We need to hear him because honestly, he's got way more to say than I would ever have to say. What was Super Soul Sunday, Tina, where you saw him? I know he's got a New York Times best-selling book right now. In fact, while we're waiting for him to come back in, I'm going to pop that up on the screen. All right, let's see if we've got audio now. Talk to me, Shaka. I still got no audio. Maybe just pick that laptop up and just beat on it a little bit. Remember, that's how we used to do it when the TV didn't work. Your mom said, get up and go hit that thing. And sometimes that would work. I've never seen that work with a laptop yet. So what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to do a little tutorial here. I am going to share my screen here. So watch this, Shaka. Okay, I'm going to give you a little technical support here. I'm going to put this up on the screen. And right here next to the Connect camera, you should see this little gear here. And then your microphone, there might be different ones to select. And when you know it's working, you'll see this little waveform here. If it's not working, that'll just be flatline. So when you go ahead and refresh again and click on that gear and then pick the microphone you have until one works for you. Because we're going to solve this problem. We are. It's going to happen. Yes, Claudia, Jeff has all kinds of shenanigans. By the way, how'd you guys like that little tutorial right there? Like on the spot. This is Joel Help Desk. We're troubleshooting things right here on BeLive.tv. So I can see him right now. He's in his living room. He's clicking the button. He's getting that microphone all set up. And I'm just waiting for him to jump back in here. Anyway, how y'all doing? Yeah? You having a good week? Anybody got any funny jokes? Speaking of funny jokes, I hope that you're tuning in to Be Live Weekly on Mondays now, as we've got a bunch of interesting guests lined up for this the coming weeks as well. Now, Be Live Weekly is going to still be on Mondays. But my show is moving to Fridays. I'm bouncing over here and bouncing over there. Letting my assistant know that he's having some audio issues. Robert, good to see you. If you're watching, please give a shout out in the comments so I can give a shout out to you. And while we're waiting for Shaka to come on back in here, this would be a good opportunity for me to give a shout out to our friends at .live. You guys know all about .live. I'm a fan of having your own domain branded on .live. And if you go to Joel20.live, you can go here and search for your name. And we're just going to go ahead and I'm going to search for Shaka right here. Look at that, Shaka.live. Oh, now none of you take this. If you take this and you don't give it to him, then I'm going to send him over to your place. All right, this is not a guy that you want to mess with, because he will set you straight. He will make sure that you live a prosperous, inspirational life, and he'll take that domain. So if he wanted to grab that, he put that in the cart, just like you would put your name in the cart, and then you would save 20% at the checkout. Claudia's got her .live. Excellent. Well done. Again, it is Joel20.live is where you're going to go to get the savings on that. And hopefully he's working out on his end the technical difficulties. And this is one of the issues that we have with new technology, right? Is that people have so many different configurations on their computers that I really have great respect for BeLive and any of the people that are building out these types of technologies, because they've got to make it where it works with everything as best as it can. Now, right now, there's a BeLive app that's on the iPhone, and of course, if Shaka can't get in here on desktop, then we can have him go ahead and try to use the application to get in here as well. Because honestly, you can only listen to me babble on and on for so long. I mean, I'm interesting for just a few minutes, and that's when I'm at my best. And then beyond that, it's like, okay, Joel, we're done with you. What else you got? Show us somebody interesting. Hey, John, good to see you. Glad that you're here as well. I'm going to go ahead and show you guys the book of my guest one more time before he gets back in here. This is the book right here. This is a New York Times bestseller. It's called Righting My Wrongs, Life, Death, and Redemption in an American Prison. Lots of reviews, high ratings, and he is now the consulting producer on Oprah's show Released. This is on the OWN network, and you can read all about this here. And once he gets in here, we'll hear more about his story. I don't want to read this to you because I want to hear it directly from his own mouth. But you guys can go to Amazon if you're interested in the book and either look up his name or look up the title of the book, which is called Righting My Wrongs. Clever title, too, isn't it? Yeah. I'm digging it. Yeah, it does sound amazing, Claudia. There's so much negativity out there in the world today. And there's people doing all kinds of things. And, when you hear about somebody who has done something that, just is horrible and has transformed their lives, then we need to listen into that because that's inspiring. All right, Shaka, let's try now. Talk to me.
Hey, how's it going?
We got it. High five, my man. We pulled it off.
Salute.
Boom. This is Shaka Senghor, everybody, and you're here on Joel.LIVE. Welcome to the program. I'm sorry for the technical issues, but I'm glad you're here.
No problem, man. Appreciate y'all patience and appreciate y'all having me on.
Absolutely. I've been talking you up and talking about your book with a really clever title, Righting My Wrongs. I really dig that. And you're doing a lot of speaking now as a result of telling your story, but let's go ahead and jump back. Tell our viewers a little bit about where you grew up and how you ended up in prison.
So I grew up in the city of Detroit, on the east side of Detroit. It's where I was born and raised at, and the neighborhood was growing up. It was a pretty nice neighborhood, middle class, working class neighborhood. So a combination of that, and then crack cocaine happened, and things were never the same after that. If you go into that neighborhood right now, it looks almost like a third world country due to the devastating impact of drugs and some of the other fallouts from the real estate bust in Detroit. So it's just really sad to go over there and look at what the community looks like now compared to what it looked like when I was growing up. But had a lot of difficulties at home and decided to run away when I was around 14 years old. And, I was this naive, innocent kid who just wanted to get out of a troubled home. And like what often happens in a lot of communities is I was just taken advantage of by older, more seasoned street hustlers and found myself being seduced into the crack cocaine trade. And the thing about it, like when I tell people that now, what a lot of people don't realize is this is when crack first began to hit the Midwest, similar to what we're looking at now in the country with the opioid crisis. It really hit our community with a devastating impact in a way that nobody suspected would happen. And so I entered the culture in that stage. And so within months, I just found, myself immersed in this culture that was devastating.
So
You
how
know,
old were you when you
I was
started
around
doing?
14, around
Mm,
14 years old. And,
mhm.
you know, it's really interesting now because as a mentor, when I look at 14-year-olds, you know, the first question that pops in my head is what type of sick adult would think that it's okay to give a child drugs to sell?
Mhm.
These 14-year-olds are still babies, basically. And I got caught up in that culture. My childhood friend got murdered. I got robbed at gunpoint. At one point, I was beat nearly to death. And 3 years into being, you know, in and out of the streets, I got shot multiple times at the age of 17. When I got shot, there was no treatment for PTSD. There was nobody there to say, hey, this shouldn't have happened. Here's how you're going to feel after it happened. And so I just started carrying a gun every day to feel protected and feel safe in my neighborhood. And 16 months later, I found myself in another conflict. And in that conflict, I decided to shoot first and tragically caused the man's death. I was sentenced to 17 to 40 years in prison, 7 of that being in solitary confinement. And, you know, and I write all the details are in writing my wrongs. You know, people can read the book to really get into all the murky details of everything that happened within the street culture, within prison, and, you know, the things that started to happen on my way out.
Well, that's, you find yourself tied up in that. And I would imagine when you're in it, it doesn't feel like there's any way out. That's just life, right?
Yeah, it really feels like a cycle that's hard to escape. And it's one of the reasons that I do the work that I do today is because I really want young men and women to realize that there can be a life outside of the pain. There can be a life that doesn't include a long prison sentence. And you can figure out how to navigate your way through whatever you're going through in your household, in your school, in your community, if you have the right tools available. And so
Mhm.
that's what drives my work today. Like, you know, I I've served my sentence and I've done the time, and people always ask me like, why do I continue to talk about these issues when, you know, I'm not on parole? I'm under no obligation to do so. But the reality is this: is even though I serve a prison sentence, I still live with a life sentence, knowing that I've devastated a family, knowing that I've, you know, impacted my community in a negative way. And I just feel like, you know, if I can prevent one young man or young woman from making the type of decisions that I made back then I feel like this is my responsibility to do. And if I can raise awareness about what we're doing wrong in the system that keeps perpetuating this cycle, then I just feel like that's the honorable thing to do. So, you know, my work is driven by my passion of making sure young men and women can find different pathways than I found, and to really help policymakers and decision makers rethink, you know, this old model of tough on crime because it really doesn't work. I was fortunate. I'm one of the fortunate ones. I went to prison. I was literate. I was able to read. I had amazing, incredible mentors in there who are still serving life sentences. And so I was able to come out on the other side of that. Sadly, not too many do. And those who do come out tend to end up right back because we don't have the support structures in place to ensure that men and women are returning home healthy and whole.
Well, the purpose of, prison ideally is to bring rehabilitation, right? You're put away for the time, but it doesn't seem like rehabilitation happens to most people. What made you different while you were in prison? Was it at first were you rebellious, or at some point did you go, here's what I need to do in order to make things right?
I was very rebellious. The first part of my incarceration, I got into every type of trouble you can think of.
Mm.
I accumulated 36 misconducts, which means those are rule violations that I got caught breaking those rules. And so I was just really in this dark, this sad space that a lot of young men and women who end up incarcerated find themselves in. You know, I didn't want to take responsibility. I didn't want to be accountable. And fortunately, I just had these incredible mentors who saw something in me that I didn't see in myself. And they knew that I was redeemable. They knew that if I was really well, you know, prepared, if I was given the right tools, I could turn things around. And so, you know, that combination of being literate, having great mentors, those were the tools that really, you know, created the opportunity for me to turn myself around. And then the last thing was me just making the decision that I wanted to live a life different than the one that had led to so much pain in my life and the life of the deceased family and my family. It's one of the things that, you know, when you watch the show that we've done, you see the pain that, you know, incarceration has, you know, on families, the impact it has, and the pain it causes families. And so I knew I wanted to produce different life outcomes. And I think that the most important part for me was realize that I was worthy of living a life that was different from the one that I had lived the past couple of decades.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, absolutely. And so I want to ask only one prison question, and then I want to move on to what you're doing now. And
Sure.
that is, I'm assuming the solitary confinement was at the early part of your time incarcerated because you were causing trouble. Is that right?
Well, it was a mixture. So the first couple of years the first couple of stints I did was in the early part. And then about midway through, so I went to prison in 91. And then around October of 99, I went to solitary confinement where I stayed for 4.5 years straight.
Well, there's my question: is how does one mentally survive when it's just you?
I mean, it's tough. You know, I still deal with the you know, the collateral consequences of all that time of solitary confinement, and some of the things were really blind spots for me until recently. Even working on the show and just watching the impact that incarceration has on other men, and some of the things they struggle with start helping me really understand some of my struggles coming home. I read an article by this guy named Albert Woodfox he did 43 years in solitary. And he talked about all of the things that he experienced, you know, the night sweats, the waking up feeling panic, the anxiety, the discomfort that comes with sometimes being in spaces where there's a lot of people. And I realized I had been experiencing all these things and just didn't know what to call them or how to label them. So, you know, it's definitely a form of torture. You know, it's a practice that I believe should be ended in this country. If anybody has read about Khalif Browder or saw the documentary on Khalif Browder, he's a young kid who was held in solitary confinement. When he got home, he just couldn't cope with all the things that he was confronted with while in that environment, and ended up committing suicide as a result of that. And, you know, again, I'm really fortunate, you know, to be literate. I read about what it's supposed to do to me, how it's supposed to impact me. And, you know, because I was aware of that, it made it easy for me to kind of combat it.
Mm-hmm. So you developed because you were journaling, or you just liked writing? You started documenting while you were in prison. Is that right?
Yeah, I started journaling. For me, it was like just a form of meditation on paper.
Uh-huh.
And, you know, I knew when I started to examine my life and think about, okay, how did I go from wanting to be a doctor to serving out my most promising years in solitary? I started journaling and started asking those tougher, deeper questions. And once I started doing that, like, life started becoming a lot more clearer. I started really understanding how to turn things around and what was necessary for me to do, what I needed to do. I had to acknowledge what my weaknesses were, but also acknowledge what my strengths were, and really start focusing on the strengths and things like that. So, you know, it took a lot of work. You know, it still takes a lot of work. Now social media is my journal, so I write about things that are troubling to my spirit. I reach out to people and just have conversations. And, you know, the biggest part of it is recognizing that ultimately the decision is up to you as a human being, what you want your life outcomes to be.
Mm. I would imagine that you probably started having an impact. Your ministry probably began while you were still incarcerated with other prisoners and inmates. Is that right?
Yeah, definitely. Definitely. I mean, you know, when I was getting into a lot of trouble, I controlled a large part of the drug trafficking in prison. You know, I ran, you know, with crews that got into a lot of trouble. We were well respected in there. And so, because I had that type of influence and that type of popularity, when it was time to do something positive, the guys were more inclined to really believe me, because they knew I was doing it for the right reason. They knew I wanted to turn my life around, not that I was scared of getting in trouble, because I got in every type of trouble that exists in prison. And
Mm-hmm.
so, you know, I really, you know, having these young guys come to me and say, here's what's going on in my life. Here's what I want to do different. I don't want to be the same person coming out. I want to be an asset. I want to be a father. I want to be a mentor. How do I go about do this? And so we really just started dealing with a lot of things that we had all been through, child abuse. Some had been through sexual abuse, drug abuse, abandonment. And the more we did that, it just started making sense.
So what year were you released?
So I was released in June 22nd, 2010.
Okay, so it's just over 7 years now. Can you explain a little bit about what that was like after having been incarcerated for so long to be free and to step into the world 20 years later?
It was the equivalent of Fred Flintstone walking into an episode of the Jetsons. I mean, I came home and people were doing Skype and all the social media and just all these things that we just take for granted now. I had to learn. So I had to learn this new language. It's really interesting because now when I watch men and women come home, and I just think like how overwhelming it must feel for them to walk out into a world that's very different from the world we left. Like, the internet was just being created when I went to prison. So there was no internet when I went. There was no laptops. There was no, access to all this connectivity. Grocery stores, you couldn't just check your groceries out by yourself. Your gas station pump didn't talk to you and inform you to take the nozzle out. So I'm literally just was mesmerized by all of the things that I had to learn in a relatively short amount of time. And yeah, I mean, I'm a nerd, so I enjoy it definitely. I mean, it's incredible to be able to interface with technology and learn cool new things. I mean, like even this platform we're on now, this was new to me. So, yeah. But I like it though. It's really cool. So, it's just like it's almost like a newborn just being kicked out into the world and saying, okay, now go ahead and walk and feed yourself and figure it out.
Isn't it also amazing that, you come out and you have this message that you want to share to help youth before they make the same mistakes you do. And now you have all these tools at your disposal that helps reach them even easier.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, I love it. I love to get on all the technology with the kids. We stay connected. It helps me with my mentoring because, a lot of times I'm going into different states and different communities. So I may not always have access just like in person to connect with the kids, but they reach out to me on every platform. They put me on their Snapchat and on Instagram. They're following me and we're having conversations that are real. I mean, I've had kids reach out to me about, suicide attempts and thinking about suicide and, kids that reach out to me about being pressured and being bullied and how do they combat that. And I maintain these relationships with these kids. Like I don't just abandon them or just, say, okay, well, I came into your town and talked and now I must move on. But I'm very intentional about staying connected.
So how do we, there's two things that need fixing, right? The communities, the inner cities that have unfortunately fostered this type of culture, and then the prison system, which unfortunately does not bring back out as many people that are as healthy and well-balanced as you are, but instead recycles them.
Yeah, but I think it starts with being honest. One of the things that's been troubling about our country is that we're not oftentimes honest about what's really happening. It's easy to just point the finger and say, well, you know what, that community over there, that's their issue, that's their problem. Let them fix it. That school system over there, we don't really care about those kids over there because they don't look like the standard American model that's depicted in society, right? And until we're honest about that, we'll never really fix these problems. And so now what I mean by that is I walked out of a prison that was in better condition than the schools in the inner city of Detroit that I mentored in. That's problematic to me. And it should be problematic to every American in this country. Like there's no way that kids should be in schools that are failing, that are unhealthy, that doesn't have the modern technology to compete with the rest of the world, that doesn't have just basic, books and bathrooms that are healthy and whole for them to use. And that's, it's sad, and it's actually, this the one thing that really, because I try not to get angry a lot, but it's the one area that really pisses me off is what we do to kids in this country. And kids who don't have a choice in what color they're born in, they don't have a choice in what communities they were born into. And I just think it's selfish, it's lazy thinking on behalf of most of us American citizens who don't really consider that, these kids deserve the chance that this country is capable of providing. So I think the larger issue is us having these honest conversations. With the current administration, everybody's been kind of up in arms about, some of the language that comes out, some of the misogyny, the xenophobia, the racist barbs, etc. But to me, I see it as a fresh opportunity for us to be honest about what's really happening in this country.
Yeah, well, we definitely need to have discussion. And, I hear talk of them wanting to help fix the inner cities. And certainly that's what we all want, because unfortunately, regardless of race, once you've got a disease in any, group of people, that tends to spread, right? And we need to push back the other way. So talk a little bit about some of the things that you're doing. What does an average week look like for Shaka?
I don't know if I ever have an average week at this point. But I mean, if I'm not writing, if I'm not, whenever I'm home, I'm actually home. I'll be home now for like a couple of weeks, which is the longest stretch I've been home in probably the past year or two. So when I'm home, I try to spend as much time as with my young son. He's 5 years old, named Sekou. I try to spend as much time as possible with him, and I'm doing the parenting thing, and I'm back and forth to the school. And these kids nowadays have too much going on in the school, like way more than we had going on. But that's my life at home. And then I'm writing. I still have things that I'm working on. I'm working on a monologue show called The Cell, which I'm excited about. I just got commissioned by the Geffen Playhouse, and that's really telling these deeper stories about incarceration that we just don't hear. And it's really to humanize the issue, because I think once you can humanize, then you can really start creating legislation that speaks to the humanity of the people who are being impacted. And, if I'm not doing that, I'm at some type of conference or meeting or doing a panel. And so that's pretty much day-to-day life out here. It's work nonstop. It's telling these stories. It's really having these conversations, pushing policymakers to really think about the impact that their legislation has long-term, not just short-term to get elected in the office, but really long-term in terms of the impact it has on community. So I speak with a lot of people throughout my weeks and just try to continue pushing forward the idea that if we start with our humanity, then we're able to produce better outcomes. And when I'm not doing that, I'm just looking for inspiration in other people's work. I'm connecting with youth. That's really important to me. Whenever I travel to a city to do an event, I try to make sure I connect with some of the schools that are in the tougher school districts, and really just connect with the kids. Like, they keep me going. They keep me inspired. They really make sure that I have fly kicks, which is really important, because they're always keeping me up on the shoe game. So, just really, it's all about connection for me.
Do you have an open line with these kids? Can anybody reach out to you for help, or is it too much? Does it get overwhelming because there's so much need?
No, I mean, I work with some incredible people throughout the country. It's one of the things about this work. A lot of times people think I'm an anomaly and it's only me, but I work with incredible men and women who are doing amazing work throughout the country. Like a guy like Calvin Evans in Detroit. They're doing incredible work. So anytime somebody's reached out to me, I don't live there anymore, but I got great people on the ground. Susan Burton, who's doing incredible work throughout the nation. It's just really about making sure that we're networking with and providing the resources, And I mean, sometimes you get people that just think I can fix everything, because they're like, hey, do you work on this issue and do you work on that issue? And while I think all of these issues are really important, I'm also mindful that, I can only do what I can do in the spaces that I work in. And so I just try to be resourceful. But they can, all the young people, they can definitely reach out to me on social media and just let me know how I can help, how I can guide, and and even just follow my page. A lot of times I'm just, doing pop-in videos or live feeds of just information or my thoughts and my commentary on what's happening in the world.
I totally get, some people might ask why you're still talking about it. And I get what you said, because I think our pain and our sufferings are what shape us. And if we heal from and learn from those experiences, now we have a gift that we can bring to the world. And so I applaud you for really harnessing that gift and seeking to help so many, because now this is a life mission that you're going to keep talking about until your last breath.
Yeah, I mean, and it's the thing. Like, to me, this is a big country. It's a big world we live in. We have over 300 million people here, and everybody doesn't have the same type of access. And a lot of times, people may miss the message because they just haven't come in close proximity to it. And so my responsibility is just to keep reaching out. It's a lot of kids who are suffering. And a lot of times we just haven't really thought about how to best help them and best support them. And then with our prison system, show like Release, when you think about Release, it's such a powerful show because for the first time, you have a full 8-part docuseries that's really taking you deep into the personal lives of men and women who were incarcerated and the impact it had on their family and community. And I mean, everybody who's watched this show, I always forewarn them, I don't care if you're a man or a woman, grab you some Kleenex as you watch the show, because you'll really start to see the devastating impact. One of the first cast members in the first episode, a guy named Kevin, really articulate, spiritually grounded man who suffered through some drug addiction issues. Guy ended up being caught up on a third strike law in California. He went to prison for 19 years for $160 in children's clothes that he stole, and obstructing, like, police, trying to run away from the police. 19 years, 2 decades, for was essentially a property crime. Nobody was hurt, nobody was killed, nobody was left with, deep impacts, to their lives. It was $160 worth of baby clothes. But his family suffered tremendously as a result of that. And, telling these type of stories, if you're a legislator and you can watch that and think that that law still makes sense to you, you have no sense of what it means to be a human being. Mm-hmm. And so, this is why the show is so important. And it's really been my honor to work with Oprah. She is incredibly committed to this movement of, humanity, recognizing and acknowledging people's humanity, and just showing these stories, and she's not a bleeding heart. Sometimes people be like, oh, Oprah, she's just bleeding heart, and she believes you should open the door and let everybody out. That is not the case. If you've watched my interview with her, like, she's very serious. She's very, genuine and wanting to know and understand. But it's not about letting people off the hook. It's about being honest about what really works, what doesn't work. I went to Germany with a group from the Vera Institute, and we studied their prison system. And I can honestly tell you that I went over there with a lot of biases. I was like, Germany, this is the place where the Holocaust took place. And I just assumed that their prisons were going to be the worst in the world. And when I got over there and I saw the humanity and the humane way in which they interacted, I felt the same for our country. And I said to myself, we don't have the best history, as a country. I mean, we have histories of slavery. We had a history of internment camps. We had a history of, wiping out natives who were here before anybody else. And so we don't have the best history, but we also have the greatest opportunity to show what it means to be exemplary in our humanity.
I love how optimistic you are. That's I think that's essential. You've mentioned the show a number of times, and I've been looking to see it's on the OWN network. Is that correct?
Yep, on the OWN network, 10 p.m. Eastern time, 9 p.m. Central time, 10 p.m. Pacific time, on the OWN network every Saturday night. So we're on episode. This weekend will be episode number 5. You can go back and check them all out on demand. I do forewarn you to grab you some tissues because it's just some of the stories are heart-wrenching, but they're the most human stories you're ever going to watch. I mean, just the complexities of what it means to get back to society, you know, and there's humor there, just, you know, watching people rediscover life on the outside. One of the guys who went in, he basically went in as a kid. He was 19 or so, and his grandmother, who raised him as her son, she left his room completely intact. So imagine your bedroom from 20 years ago, when you were a teenager 20 years ago. Imagine walking back into that time capsule. And so this guy literally walks in and he's going through his stuff, and it's really one of the things that makes you realize what time served really looks like.
Yeah,
it was like Back to the Future, basically.
Well, for those that don't have cable, it looks like if you go to Oprah.com and go to the OWN network, several of the episodes are available. You have to sign in, but it looks like they're right here, and you can click on that and watch some clips or more about the show.
And they're also available on the OWN app as well.
Excellent. And you say that how many episodes will there be in total?
So it's a total of 8 episodes. Yeah.
Greatly needed. Well, I really appreciate what you're doing, and I know that you're already touching so many more lives than you could even know, right? You have those that reach out to you and those that come and say thank you, but you know, the number of seeds that I'm sure you've planted and words of inspiration that you've given to kids and adults and given them hope, and so I want to say thank you for that.
Oh, thank you so much for having me. Thank you so much for sharing our story and the show with your audience. You know, reach out with any questions. I did repost on my page, and I'm quite sure it's somewhere out there. So if people have questions, I'll pop into the comments and see if there's things I can answer. But appreciate you using this platform to really share these type of stories and many more.
Absolutely. Where's the best place for people to connect? I didn't see that you have a website of your own, or did I just miss it?
Yeah, so the best place is social media right now. We got some type of technical stuff going on with the website right now. But all my social media is all up under my name, Shaka Senghor. Instagram, Twitter, Facebook is all on my own. And then also mindblown what is the website for that? I had to find that. But I'll post it in the comments. Yeah,
that'd be great. So, guys, you can just find him right there. You know, spelling of the name. Shaka Senghor is Senghor. And I would encourage you. People here in the room are really glad that you came. Robert says thanks. Brad says thanks. And Shaka, April wants to know if you know Jamie Primack Sullivan.
I don't, April. I'm not sure.
Okay. Well, April, maybe you can reach out and send a message if you feel like an introduction is warranted. Shaka, my friend, I hope we get to meet in person sometime in the not too distant future. I'd love to shake your hand.
Yeah, likewise. What region of the country are you in?
I'm in Denver.
Okay. I've actually been in Denver a couple of times. I love it there.
Well, you let me know if you come through, and I'll take you out for a meal, and we'll sit down and have some epic conversation.
Yeah, definitely looking forward to it.
Thank you, my friend. Take care. Everybody give it up for Shaka Senghor, and make sure you go over to his page and give him thanks for spending his time and also for taking his pain and the tragedy that happened in his life and turning it around for good. And that's all we can do, right? Is take what we've done. Sometimes it's happened to us. Other times we're the ones that caused it. But, when we own it and then seek to transform it into something that will benefit others, it's kind of like right back there where it says do good stuff, right? We just want to make a difference. Tamika says she lives in Denver, and glad to see you here. A few more shout outs. Thank you, Teresa. Thanks for getting this set up. Tonya, thanks a lot. And Robert, thanks for watching Joel.LIVE. Shaka, hang out just a second in the lobby there. I'm going to finish up and just want to talk to you personally for a moment. And thanks for watching. Got another great guest for you coming up on Joel.LIVE next week. And then we will be moving the show to Fridays starting on November 11th. So appreciate you. And of course, until next time, do good